What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Rsay podcast. My name is Arsenio Mass. You can catch me on Instagram at RSAYSR, or you can follow the podcast page at Rsay Podcast. Today, I got a great ass episode. If you know anything about Measure of Men, you're going to know about this gentleman right here. Everybody, give a warm welcome to Moreo J, aka At the Sound of My Voice podcast. Hit him up. Swear to God, because he be on my side most of the time on Measure of Men.
Man, what's happening, everybody? As you said, I'm Moreo J, at the Sound of My Voice podcast. I've had the pleasure of being on multiple episodes with Rsay, man, and it's a privilege of mine. And I really respect everything he's doing. The fact that he invited me on here, I mean, I'm excited to be here. So I look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, man, and I'm full disclosure. I am late to this podcast, and thank God he still had the time to join. So thank you for that.
Right on.
Um, so with Measure of Men, obviously we talk about men's dirt and men's rights, if you will, relationships, advice from the male perspective, and certain things like that. But I noticed when you get on there, you have a totally different perspective, and I want to know kind of like your life story and how that built into the perspective that you have now.
Of course, I'm gonna start at my upbringing, but I guess the short version of it is trial and error through life, mostly. I was raised with a lot of core values. My mom, and I mean, to this day, she's still like my biggest supporter. Well, one of my biggest supporters, because of course I have kids and a wife and everything, and they're really super supportive of everything I'm doing. But growing up, I grew up with my mom. She was a huge example of, hard work, dedication, what it is to not only be independent, but to be a submissive wife at the same time. So a lot of my views on women just came from her, and then my appreciation of her. I didn't have that traditional, we sit down, have talks, we come close to those moments like that. We did come to each other about some things, but mostly it was her leading by example. She's soft hearted, but we didn't have those mother son conversations. I never had the father son conversations. But when my mom got married to my stepfather, um, I hated him only because I was so young and didn't know any better. And then over time, he pretty much showed me what it is to love and raise and take care of. And I watched my mom and his relationship. So a lot of my views on marriage and love and so on and so forth came from that. And then after looking at how I was raised, you don't abandon those core values. And as I grew up, of course, I made my mistakes in my own relationships, but at the same time, it became, I found that I couldn't be the way everybody else was. Like I said before, I feel like everybody goes to that phase where they try to be a hoe. I couldn't make it one day. The whole one day I tried it, it was like, baby, what's wrong? How you doing? And it went from we were just seeing if we could make something happen to I'm caring more and more about their feelings, what's going on, so on and so forth. And I couldn't bring myself not to want to spend time. Um, I say I'm a simp most of the time, but at the end of the day, what I want for me and what I got going on, I need stability. I need security because that's what I'm bringing to the table. And so a lot of my views on women, as far as me being a man, I got that from a strong grandfather that retired from three jobs. Well, worked three and retired from two. He played baseball at the same time and he raised 14 kids.
Phew.
Never seen him complain a day in his life.
Wow.
He died when I was very young. I was about 14, 15 when he died. Then there was my stepfather, of course. I mean, both juggernauts in my world. And my stepfather died in 2016. Both died around Thanksgiving. One the day of, one the day before. Um, my mom, again, very strong woman still to this day. I mean, I could call her right now and she'll give me all the way down to her last penny and not even breathe or think twice about it.
Wow.
Um, Then, of course, the strongest part of me came out when I found out I was having my daughter, my first child. From that day forward, I mean, I did the talking to the stomach, all that. I got the books, being a father, being a son, being a grandson, being a nephew, and seeing these lives. And most of all, my faith is what kept me inquisitive about how much better I could be as a person. I'm far from perfect. All of this sounds good when I put it in, the light that I'm putting it in. But at the same time, a lot of mistakes, a lot of trial and error, a lot of bumping my head. And, I've never set out to do anything malicious. I can't say that. I don't set out to do people wrong, anything like that. But we all make our share of mistakes on our way to where we're really trying to get to. And the key is making sure that we understand that those are mistakes and we turn away from those that kept us backwards or kept us either hurting people or hurting ourselves. And pretty much I just try to take it a day at a time to, make good relationships. And that's why when I see you guys, I appreciate you so much for actually saying, hey, come and be a part of what we have going on. Hey, come on the show. Why not? Hey, I'm in a position where I can be available at least in some capacity. And
Exactly.
I'm like, it's good to be able to be depended on, dependable. I say that much. It's good to be able to be dependable. And there's a difference.
Sure.
Um, so I don't have a problem. To me, you're not late. You're right on time with it.
Yeah, it's like me. I literally saw Jay Christian from the Cognac Room join. I
Yeah,
joined, and then all I literally did was hit request, and I was on, and they said come back next week. I've been there ever since. You know what I'm saying?
right,
So it wasn't like we need you on the show or anything. No, it was just because just like with you, with our perspectives were different than theirs. You know what I'm
right.
saying? And you know, I joke about it, but I feel like sometimes the way that even Petra talks from the Cognac Room, I feel like I'm even more simp than she is. You know what I'm saying? Like as far as you know what I mean, on a male perspective
Yeah,
or whatever. But but it's so true that you know, um, that's what we do, bro. Just go on there and it actually helps support everybody. It helps support all of our podcasts. It gives
right.
an inside look to a new audience and stuff like that. And but it's just sweet like that, bro. It's and it's like there's like no pressure. Like if you can't make it, you can't make it. You know what I mean? But
And
I kind of want to go
that's
back to how you grew up and stuff like that. You said
okay.
you lost a lot of people in 2016 and recently, and how how much did it impact your family for one, and what have you done so far to get past it up until this point?
Well, my grandfather actually died in '96. I was actually coming home, and it's crazy because I was so close to him, but I didn't realize how close to him I was because I'm a grandkid and he's from that generation of we go to work, we make it happen, we take care of the family. He was man of few words. He's about 10 feet taller than me, and he commanded respect, without saying many words at all. So when he passed, I didn't know how to feel because I felt like I didn't know him until he passed. But when he passed, I realized I knew more of him than I thought. And a lot of me was shaped through my genetics with him. I didn't know he was actually the only man I've ever called daddy throughout my entire life. Because my father wasn't there up until recently, maybe like 10 years ago. Him and I, 10 years ago, the month of maybe March, I believe. But my father, my biological father, wasn't in my life at the time for a long while, almost 30 years or so. So with my grandfather, when he passed, I didn't know how to feel. So I took that as okay, what's wrong with me? What's going on? Somebody close to me died. I'm not crying. But then I realized when I tried to speak his name and talk about him, I couldn't. It took me at least a year, maybe two, before I could speak his name without completely breaking down and not uttering a word. And that was when I realized how much he meant to me. And I have this, I had this thought at the time, and it didn't come from church. It didn't come from loved ones or anything like that. I started to think about everything he did in life because the story continued to unfold of who he was. and I get these different stories from people, and I realize like, wow, he was a great man. It's kind of like that celebrity that has family members that don't see them like that, but the world has known them to be larger than life for a long time, and that was him. I mean, like I said, 14 kids. His first wife actually passed off childbirth on kid 10, and then he remarried later and had four more boys. So in that, I saw them like, man, for a long time I was crazy out of my head, like, oh, I want 14 kids too. My grandfather had 14 kids. That was until I
She.
had my first one. I said, nah, I'm good.
Hell yeah.
So so when he passed, it took a while, but I started to try to emulate what he did, how he was, how strong he was and things like that. And that was throughout life because I played baseball and he got a chance to see me hit a home run in Little League Baseball. He never got a chance to come to my football game. And the final time that really hit me was when I got my first touchdown because I played football too. So in my senior year, they finally realized, okay, we need to switch these plays up. So, I was like, okay, cool. I'm getting the ball, but you take it from me. So what happened was I caught a 60-yard pass and I shook this guy 1-2 moves and I got in the end zone and I kneeled down and I prayed and thanked my grandfather. And nobody saw it because it's nighttime. I got my helmet on. It's my senior year. I cried that whole game and I got two more touchdowns. And that whole senior year pretty much mimicked that moment. And that was how I continued on after that point. Now, my stepfather actually passed in 2016. And the crazy thing is, my mom helped me get over him when we sat down on the bed after the funeral. She looked at me, and my mom's as much of a softie I am, I get it from my mom. I know that much. But in this moment, I knew she was strong, but she didn't. She was crying. She broke down several times. But when we were sitting down, she looked me in my eyes and told me that he wanted her to call me, and she knew why. Because my stepfather, he was never that. Hey, I love you, son. Come here. Let me hug you. Let me do this. He wasn't like that. And I didn't realize it till I got older because I bought every car I've ever had. My younger brother, of course, he bought him a car, fixed him up cars, all that stuff. And I'm pissed. I'm pissed. I'm like, what the hell? I'm the oldest. He's wrecked cars before he had a permit. So I'm like, it's crazy. But then my mom pretty much gave
It's
me
that
clarity.
he's the baby, right?
Right, he's the baby.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
And
usually what happens.
he's 10 years younger than me. And get this, he's 6'6". As you can see, I'm not
Oh,
6'6".
well, I don't know. I can't tell. I don't know.
Yeah,
How tall are you?
my torso is like this.
Uh,
My lower body's like this. This torso is like this. So yeah, man, it's not happening. He was about 6'3" in ninth grade.
Great day.
So, he's getting all these extras and he's getting it from me too. That's my guy. I loved him, loved him, loved him. And I love him. He's my younger brother. That's my guy. And that day when my mom was talking to me, she was telling me he knew that if anything happened to him, that I would take care of her and our family. And she said it with a dry eye, as serious, as sincere as I've ever seen my mom look me in my eyes and say something. And in that moment, I felt the strength that I needed because I saw it in her. And she passed it on to me. My stepfather passed it on me. My grandfather passed it on to me. And I'd seen all of their struggles, all of them. And my mother took care of both of them until they passed, both of them.
Wow.
Like my
Respect.
grandfather, when he passed, we were both over there. I'm running over there with her, and he passed on Thanksgiving. And then my stepfather, he passed the day before Thanksgiving. My mom had taken care of him for 2.5 years before he passed. And I drove all the way down, and he had actually passed beforehand, but we got a chance to say goodbye. And that one still hits me to this day because I'm
Yeah.
still learning lessons from that because there are so many years as a kid. He's the step parent. I gotta accept this person for so long, Now I'm an adult
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not mature enough in mind to realize what this man is teaching and training me to do and be. So finally, to
Would
this
you
day
agree?
now,
Would you
go
agree
ahead.
that would you agree that as time went by, those lessons that were taught you learned as you got older? Not like necessarily right after he passed, but years later, a decade later, 5 years later, like, oh, see, that's what he was trying to tell me.
Man, that happens to me every single day. Like the one thing I hated as a kid, he'd always have me go rake the yard and mow the grass. Now we had that conversation before on the other show.
Facts.
Well, I
Don't.
think we were on Bet the House, right? Yeah, we were over there with Big Smash talking about mowing the
Yep.
grass. And see, when I was a kid, I hated mowing the grass because I was a kid. I'm like, I don't want to do this. It's hot. And to this day, I appreciate mowing my own grass, taking care of my own yard, taking care of my family.
There's
And
such a there's
as
such a pride in it.
it is, it really is. And then at the same time, I didn't, I would hate it at the time because mama would like, okay, I'm finna cook. I'm be calling all your little friends and telling everybody I'm cooking. Crazy thing is, she get on the phone, somebody call, hey, what you doing? Nothing. I'm cooking all this food and so on and so forth. Now we got a house full of people. Now to this day, now see the thing about it was my mom would season the food, season the meat. My stepfather would grill it, and we'd have a huge cookout, handing out plates, giving away food, and that was us. So to this day, man, when I first got my grill in the house we moved in, every Sunday when I'm off, I would get up, we do church, I come home, we grill, and I set aside that day to do nothing but family stuff.
Yeah.
Even if we had other stuff during the week, I set aside and we grilling. Like now my kids are like, Daddy, you filling up the cooler today? Daddy, we're going outside. Daddy, you grilling today? Like, baby, it's Wednesday, it's not Sunday. Wait till I'm off. And so my
That's
stepfather did
nice,
that.
man. That's cute, man. How old are the kids? Oh, you just got your daughter, right? How old is she?
No, 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 no. When I
Oh,
met my wife, I had kids with a Z. I had two
oh,
kids.
see,
I met my
kids
wife,
with a
and then I had
Z.
kids with a Z. So I got
Kids with a Z. I like that.
And so and I have an 18-year-old who's in college now.
Okay.
I have a 16-year-old who's taking college courses for the summer. She's going into her junior year. I have a 12-year-old that'll be 13 this year. I have a 10-year-old and I have a 6-year-old that'll be 7 this year.
Wow. Wow.
And when I tell you, and I share something else with you. And like I don't mind because it all these are part of my testimonies and I appreciate them so much. When before I met my dynamic threes mom, and I call him that. I don't do bonus kids and nothing like that, which I respect and it's cool. But I call them my dynamic three. And before I met them, it was just me and my two that I had. They didn't live with me. They still don't, but I have them so much so people don't even realize they don't live with me.
Gotcha.
So I was like, okay, I got my salt and pepper shaker. I'm done. So I got my boy, got my girl. I'm done. And then at the time, it was rough. Like it was really rough when it comes down to, finances, trying to make some different things happen. I had gone through a divorce, um, and I paid for the divorce. So before anybody gets any ideas, I filed for divorce. I paid for the divorce. And the only thing I took were my clothes and my car. That's it. And it was like I was pretty much done. But then
What
I
made
lost a lot. Go ahead.
what what made you what made you file for the divorce?
I'll say this. Um, there are worse things that you can do to a man than cheat on him. And I don't think people realize that a lot of people think that the worst thing is for them to cheat on you and or get pregnant, whichever one. But there are
Mm,
worse things you can do to a man because a man has to have pride. A man has
mm,
to, if nothing else, you may not love me, you may not want to be with me anymore, and that's cool. But to have a complete and utter lack of respect, regard for how you're doing whatever it is you're doing hurts more than the actual act itself. And this is
that
not what
that
happened.
I think people don't understand that men also go through psychological warfare.
Exactly. Man, when I tell you we were married for almost 5 years, right around 5 years. We had our ups and downs and shit was up and down at different points in times. That's where I didn't know if it was going to be right again. But the last 9 months was the worst I have ever experienced in my life in any relationship.
Wow.
And I took it, it was one of those times as to where I said, I'm a husband until I'm not. I had to say that because otherwise I would have just been, all out of pocket and out of bounds myself. And it's crazy because people end up putting relationships in a light of, okay, well, they're doing this, I'm gonna go do this. Well, that means you got two unfocused people in a relationship. Like, what are you really focused on? They may be doing this, but if that's all you're focused on, and now you're gonna go get off focus to go do what they're doing in your own right, then what are you really focused on as far as you're concerned? You're not bettering yourself. You're just doing the same thing they're doing.
Facts. And
And
it's just a
so,
vicious cycle.
exactly. And so, once, I wasn't going to leave, I tried to work it out. I tried to figure out, I was trying to learn how to be a husband. I was looking at for better, for worse. I'm like, damn, this must be the worst. So, it got so bad to a point as to where I waited, I prayed, I waited, I prayed. And man, when I say that was my most simpish 9 months ever, and it was beyond sim. That during that point in time, I felt that was where I felt the least of what a man should ever feel. Like I felt like I was next to nothing in those moments. And
That's terrible, man.
and
I
one,
know what it means. I know what it feels like to feel that way too. You know what I mean? And I know what it feels like to give it as well.
right,
Because
right,
at some, being married for as long as I have been, you grow up. We grew up as kids, so it was kind of like you do it to me, I do it to you. You do it. It just became a vicious cycle. You know what I'm saying?
right. And so I was gonna go that route because during those moments you always have people who dip in, people who dip out, trying to talk to you, see what's going on. And man, it was one day finally when I said, because I kept saying, I'm not going, I'm not leaving, I'm staying here. This is my home. I pay the bills, in the deep voice. But then it finally clicked and I left. And the craziest thing, to make a long story short, there was a point where she said to me after I left, I didn't know you had a breaking point.
Mm.
And I asked her, I said, why would you try to
Everybody's got
find?
a breaking point.
But that's the thing though. You get with somebody and you're in these situations with people, no matter how they are. And what you allow to go for so long distorts the view of who you really are because you're sacrificing that part of who you really are to allow them that space to be whatever it is they're being in the moment. So you're not growing, you're being diminished, and they're not growing. They're just doing whatever it is they want to do in the moment. So they're not even allowing themselves to see you or themselves. They're just having fun.
Facts.
And until something comes to a head and they realize, like, damn, it's like when we're living reckless, if we either come from the street or we had everything handed to us or we've been down for so long, we don't understand that there's another way of life. And we most of the time want that life, but we're not willing to turn away from where we are because it's comfortable. And she had gotten comfortable doing what she was doing, so it was second nature to her. And for me, I had gotten so comfortable at what I thought is where I was supposed to be that I allowed a lot of it to happen. So it's not completely on her. I could have stopped it at any moment,
Sure.
but the more I let it happen, the more she felt
Harder it got.
entitled to be able to do it.
Sure.
And so at the end of it, when I filed for divorce, I was clear. But before I even filed for divorce, I left, which took a lot of courage. And
It takes
my
a lot of
breaking
courage. I've been there because you're leaving your kids behind. You're telling your
right.
kids, "Listen, I love you, yo. It doesn't have nothing to do with you at all." Been there,
Well,
bro.
see,
It's hard.
the plus side of that is my daughter was only 5. She's my first kid. My daughter was going. She was almost 5. She was 4, and our relationship was so close. By this time, it was only me that was really spending that extracurricular time with her. So when I left, it was a summer. She came with me. So she came with me for the summer as she always did. Then she came home, and that's when the shenanigans started.
Mm.
But this was back in 2010. I filed for divorce in 2010. Everything was finalized in December, and the divorce was completely final January 1, 2011. So it was 1 1 1 1 1.
Facts.
I will never forget it. So,
11
uh,
11 1 1 1 1.
so the thing about it is, she's actually one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. Super smart, super everything. But like I said before, it takes a specific person to bring it out of a very specific person. So where we might have worked at one point, by the time I left, we just weren't working because
Mm-hmm.
everybody grows. Everybody grows in a relationship, and I believe. I mean, I've heard that debate over on the podcast, and Jay would be like, people have to do this or people have to do that, and he would say love is an action, and he would stick with that, which to a degree, I agree
Sure.
with him. To a degree. Love Jay's point of views. Real great dude. I think where we bump heads is because I feel so damn much.
I think that's where I agree with you the most is because, you know, I don't know about you, but my story is, and I haven't had 30 bodies before 20. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
And
right.
yeah, you know what I'm
I
saying.
think I
So he's
had
got a
three.
right. Look, I think I have two, one. No, well, I ain't gonna front. Yeah, about two or three. But he's got a totally different perspective and totally different outlook on what life is and what
Yeah,
relationships are. He demands something to give something. You know what I'm saying? I think for us more, it's like we want to feel something in order to give you something. You know what I'm saying?
right.
And that's kind of where we all bump heads a little bit. You're right, but I think
The
I
one,
think you're. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, all I was gonna say is the one thing I love about Jay's perspective is that it's honest and it's it's
Yes,
it's,
hundred
it's who
percent.
he is. And to some degree, I would say, man, I could learn a lot from that perspective when I need to set those clear boundaries of where I'm gonna go based on what I'm
Facts.
feeling. Because if a person is not gonna do this, this, and this, should I even be fucking with them? And
Exactly.
that's where I sit and I really tune in to what Jay's saying because he has that experience. That's some experience I don't have in certain areas. And so, man, I've learned a tremendous amount from him. I learned a lot from you. Even though we agree, I'm still learning a lot from what you're saying, and some from what Smash is saying. Because we take so much from each other. It's good to have that camaraderie with brothers because what
Facts.
happened is we get so deep in these relationships that we forget that sometimes you got to turn on Rsay, sometimes you got to turn on Moreo, sometimes you got to turn on Smash. But if that shit don't work, you got to do some shit that Jay is gonna do, and only Jay
Right.
is gonna look at you and be like, "There you go." Now that's what I was talking about, and it's
Now
like,
now it
I,
makes sense.
exactly. And so I take so much from you guys because in that situation, I should have laid the J down. I should have laid the J down. And
Right.
if because you got to have a point as to where before you get to that breaking point, you don't want to do it off of pure emotions, pure driven, ambitious emotions, because then you look back and feel like you did too much.
Hmm.
Most of the time, you'll have somebody in a relationship that feels like they don't want to do too much. They don't want to step on toes. That they're the person who has the calmer head most of the time. But they're also the person usually that when they reach that breaking point, all hell breaks loose.
Facts. Yeah.
And so I was blessed to be able to leave that situation before it got there. And so much so, and I hadn't mentioned this, so you get this exclusive piece of information. Um, Through it all, I find out she's pregnant.
Mm.
Now I've already left. I'm already gone. Nothing's in motion yet. Because when you leave, you have to be in another county for like 60 days.
That's it. Here in Virginia is a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well,
you
here,
got to be
well,
separated a year before you can even think about divorce.
well, I'm in Arkansas, and they're tight on some things, loose on other things. Well, here you got
Facts.
to be separated and be living in another county for 60 days. So I had to wait anyway.
Wow. Okay.
And so since I wasn't necessarily in a hurry, because you still have a lot of love for that person.
Of
She
course.
tells me on my lunch break,
At the
I
very
said,
least, that's the mother of your child. You know what I'm saying?
exactly. And so for that alone, I could never hate her. I mean, I could
Right.
hate the actions and things. I could never hate her. But
Facts.
for my child, that was something I even said to her a long time ago. I said, if nothing else, I got you because you gave me this. What made me separate completely from her outside of my child was basically her actions. And this is why. Um, I'm on my lunch break, finally, because I've gotten a new job and everything. She calls me and we talk. We hadn't talked. And she says, "Hey, I got something to tell you." I said, "You ain't got to tell me you're pregnant, right?" And she said, and she
Off
said,
bat.
"Yes." So I mean, that's the only reason I could think of you calling me.
Did you
If
laugh? I would have laughed so hard,
no,
yo.
actually, I shed 3 tears.
Oh,
3. I counted them.
facts.
3 tears.
Yeah.
Uh, and I said, and I was like, so this is what you felt was bigger than us at the time, because I knew she was
Hmm.
confused. I knew she was hurt because you live reckless only for so long. We had that talk about why women cheat and all this other stuff
Yeah.
when they actually do.
Hmm.
So I'm still having this empathy at the time. And I said, okay, so basically once you figure all this out, whatever, whatever, then we look back and we work on us. She said, no. I said, I think about it. I said, okay, we ain't got to think about it. You good. And all those tears, I kid you not, went backwards. I had 3 tears
Dried
go
right
straight
up.
back up in my head.
Mm. Mm. Yep. So, how did you feel about that afterwards? I know you said that your tears went back in, and did you want me to stop? I don't know,
No,
because
you
I don't
good.
know. Oh, okay, because I'll put her on the podcast. She'll
No,
straight
no,
up be
no,
on it. She'll straight up be on it. Yo, she won't
no,
even know it.
no. Don't even worry about it. No, you good. But
um, no.
what it was,
Like, was it refreshing? Was it freeing? Was it like that fucking bitch? Was there any anger? I mean, how did you feel hearing that
honestly,
afterwards? I understand the
honestly,
sadness. Like, god damn, really? That quick?
it,
I
no,
understand
at
that.
that no, 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 because I suspected before I left.
Ah,
Like I
okay.
said, that 9 months, it was.
Yeah, it
It's
was
like
different. It was different.
it, it's like your friends telling you, dude, she ain't coming home at night. What do you think she's doing? Dude, she's spending the night somewhere. What do you think she is? I'm at work. I'm calling home. It's my lunch break at work. She still ain't made it home. Stuff like that. So you go through things like this for 9 months. You're finding different stuff in the phone, stuff like that. And then she finally had the courage to say, I'm done. I don't want to be here. Why don't you leave? All this other stuff, all these deterrents away from what's happening, what's going on. And there was a
Yeah.
shift in her mood at a point where I was
So she
like,
knew.
exactly. So,
Without. I mean, I'm sorry. Not you knew sort of subconsciously, I guess, in a way,
right,
because she was moving different. You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
And I think in a relationship, especially if you've been in one for a while, you understand that stuff very
Right.
quickly.
And see, when she said it, that's where the 3 tears came from. That was that moment of sadness. But
Yeah.
she said that to see how I would feel about it. But because she was like, I'm thinking about X, Y, and Z. I'm just trying to figure things out. And when I asked her that question and she said no, I said, I think about it. I said, you good then, because I literally just told you that I would accept you back if you came and you were actually remorseful. You were going to be a wife again the way you're supposed to be. Because at the end of the day, cheat or not cheat, pregnancy could be the inevitable thing if you're already doing the act.
Facts.
So if I would take you back for cheating, if you decided you were going to straighten up, why wouldn't I take you back when there's a kid? It's no different, honestly,
Hmm.
because nobody had sex and say, hey, let's practice pulling out. So it is what it is. If I was going to take her back at the time, that's what it was. And this
Would you?
was,
Would you? Let's say everything was all good, all gravy. Y'all didn't divorce. Y'all weren't separated, and she came at you with that same information. Would you have left regardless, or would you have tried to work it out and tried to raise that child?
well, number one, I didn't leave because she was pregnant.
Right.
I didn't leave because I suspected. I left
Facts.
because of all of the disrespect. That's why I said, um, there are worse things than cheating when it comes to a man in a relationship. We all think that's the end all be all. We
Right.
all really do. But we have been married for like 5 years. Well, in total, it was 5 years. So you build this connection. You go through your struggles. Like we were together. Like I was 23, she was 19 at the time,
Young. Yeah.
and so we had our first kid together. We started building our life together. We worked. We did all this stuff, and we were good. You know, there are other elements that played a part as far as her perspective on things, which I won't mention because a lot of that influence has since, gone on to
Yeah.
be
Hey, whatever
elsewhere.
needs to be private, keep private. Facts.
So the biggest thing with her at the time wasn't because of that. It was the complete disrespect overall. Because, like I
Yeah.
said, I felt like less than a man, not because I found out she was cheating, but because how she treated me.
Right.
And so, had
I
she
think that's
come
the
home,
biggest. Is that not the biggest giveaway though of someone cheating?
not necessarily,
Hmm.
because I would say this: depending on their maturity level. At my age now, yes. At my age at that time, I would say that wouldn't be an indicator because what are you missing out on at my age?
Sure.
At my age at that time, yeah, you doing some foul shit right now. So you got something going
Hmm.
on. At my age right now, it's not completely a zero chance that they're cheating, but there's more of a chance that they're being distant from you or something like that because they're just unhappy. They have untapped feelings. Maybe they feel like they can't talk to you, and you both play a part in that. At my age now, I'm 39.
Yep.
So at my age
Me too.
now, there's a connection. There's something that's broken that needs to be addressed. At that age, you're not addressing feelings and stuff like that because either one's more mature or neither one of you are mature enough to actually put it together like that. So at
I,
that
you know
time,
what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna cut that clip. I'm gonna double it, triple it, and quadruple it, and put that shit out. Cause I swear to God, people need to hear that shit.
I mean, it's man, it's crazy at that time. You think you're really mature, but you don't really know what you're ready for until you come up against it to
Yeah.
see how you respond. That's why to this day, I don't say that I don't trust people. I say that I trust them as far as I know them.
Facts.
If I don't know you in this situation, I don't know what you would do. So
Right.
whatever you would do is not going to surprise me unless I've known you for so long or long enough to see you in these situations and you do something opposite of what I trust you to do.
Hmm.
So with her, to answer your question, at the time, had she said, "Man, look, I fucked up. I want to come home. I want to do this. Shit just got out of hand. This is the situation," and she was true to it, I would have taken her because I hadn't left. I would have said, "Okay, let's work on this." Because I actually told her, I said, "Had you come home and done this instead of this, had you not traded, because I said you cheated, but then you traded. Since you traded our life for this life, that's where it hurt because you
Yeah.
out there, you having fun, you're doing X, Y, and Z. If had you come home and it happened like this, we wouldn't have to tell that child anything unless it came down to them needing to know that information."
Facts. See, that's absolutely true. Like she cheated and said, "I'm sorry," and wanted to be with you, but treated you better within those 9 months prior to y'all divorcing, and you didn't know really anything about it. That could be forgiven. I don't know about the
Right.
baby, but the action and that can be forgiven in my book.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, look at it like this. I don't know how many times you've been married for a while, but I'm gonna tell you like this: if you've ever used a condom, you use the condom enough, they break.
Never
So
had never had one break on me.
I have
Uh,
had
but
condoms
I've
break.
had my first son at 19. I ain't used one since. I haven't used a condom in 20 years, bruh.
But see, that's what I mean, though. That's what I mean, though. If you have experience with condoms, and most of the time they break because um you're not putting them on properly for the most part. Sometimes you get a little too excited, you throw one on and you think you got it right because you've done this so many times and they break. But whatever the case may be, under whatever circumstances, it breaks, that could happen. So
Yeah.
when it comes to, like I said, like the child is innocent. And if somebody cheats, if you can forgive cheating, guess what could happen? You're gonna say, "Hey, what?" You're gonna ask, "Did you use protection? You could have gotten an STD. You could have brought me something home, or you could
Hmm.
have gotten pregnant." Shoulda, coulda, woulda. It didn't happen. Why are you forgiving that? But then this happens. You have this innocent child in the mix. Because
Facts.
so for me, I'm
That's
not
see
saying,
that's
oh,
where I think we separate because it sounds like you would, in my opinion, um, if everything was good, everything was gravy, and
yeah,
she was pregnant. It sounds like to me that you would at least try to raise
at the time,
at the time, not
at the
now,
time,
at
at,
the time. We're talking in the past. Facts. We're talking
right,
in the
right,
in
right.
the past. Um, and knowing myself now and knowing myself in the past, yeah, I don't know, bro. I don't think
And
I'm
I
that
get it.
good. You feel
I
me?
get it. I get it, man. But see, like I said, I was learning how to be a husband. And so every time something would get to a certain point, I would think to myself, is this the worst? Because I was reading scriptures and I was in my Bible, but I was still looking at it like, um, this is what this says. So maybe I need to try a little harder. Maybe I need to be this. Maybe if this is
Yeah,
for better for worse, because the Bible does say, that's the one way you can divorce your wife if she
yeah,
cheats on
right.
you. And I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I follow everything to the letter, like I'm not still needing some help.
We're all hypocrites, man.
But when it comes down to that part of it, I was trying my best to figure out what I needed to do, which is why I stayed as long as I did in the on the end part. Because really, all of it was summed up in 9 months out of the 5 years. 9 months.
Wow.
And so before that 9 months, I felt like
That's a
everything
blessing, though.
was
That's a
okay.
blessing that you got that. That's a blessing that it happened that just that quick. Because looking back on it, it could have dragged out for 20, 30,
Exactly.
40, 50 years. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And so, I like I said, I appreciate her for my child. I still believe she's one of the most brilliant individuals on the planet. Um, don't really like her personality. Don't really like her at all, honestly. But I love the fact that we have our child together.
Right.
Um, so
That's
wh- so
respect,
when my
man.
so when my child was born, that shaped a lot of my perspective. And as I continued to grow, 9 years later, I had my son.
Yeah.
So, and my son is 6 now. Well, my dynamic three came, and that took me to a whole nother level because that was love that they didn't have to give me. They accepted me.
That's nice.
And and so with that, a lot of that shaped who I am. And like recently this year, they got a chance to meet my father before he passed. My 16-year-old, which is my oldest biological, she didn't get a chance to meet him because every time he touched down, she wouldn't be with me.
Mm.
But my dynamic three, my youngest son, my wife got a chance to meet my dad, my father for the first time last year, and he passed February 26th of this year. So after he
Condolences,
passed,
man.
he appreciated, man. After he passed, I didn't realize how much I was like him because for so long there was there was this running joke that my mom would always respond to between me and her.
Uh oh.
Everybody would say, "Oh my God, you look so much like your mom. You look like your mom's like my mom be like, if you don't go on some damn word, you ugly." And we just playing. We're just playing. She like say you ugly. You get on my nerves, little ugly boy. I said, Mama, I look just like you. You don't look like me. You look like your ugly ass dad.
Oh, oh.
And so and so the crazy part about it was I met my when my dad came back into my life. I hadn't seen him since I was 5. And then we reconnected or connected when I was 29. And I was like, okay, I took a picture with him. I had a low haircut, just freshly cut, all that good stuff. I look just like that
I was gonna say that.
nigga. Is it closed? If she just bought it and it's still closed, she ain't used it, she can return it. But I look just like him. Just like I'm like, damn, my head is big as his. It's the same shape, the same jawline. I said, damn, I look like my ugly ass daddy.
That's hilarious.
But man, but him and I, and this is another thing that kind of helped out because I never hated him. I gave up on the possibility of a relationship a long years ago before we linked up. And this year was the 10-year anniversary of actually linking up because I called him and I told him, I said, look, this is when my daughter was young. And I was still with my ex-wife. I was saying to him, I said, look, I know we're just now talking, but I'm grown now. I got my own family. I don't have to go backwards to see what happened when I was 12, 13, 14,
Hmm.
15, 16. I said, let's pick up right here. Either you're going to be the man you say you are now, or I'll dismiss you like anybody else. Other than that, we can pick up right here and move forward.
Nice. I'm glad you
And
said that.
so when we did that, ever since we stayed in contact. In fact, our very last text message was on my birthday, February 5th of this year. And he said to me, well, he had tried to, he called me and I missed his call. Then he texted me and I didn't see his text, but I called him. And he said, oh man, what's going on? I just wanted to tell you, young man, I'm proud of you, so on and so forth. And, based on our entire relationship over the years, he'd always brag about me and I'd send him newspaper clippings and stuff I was doing in college, stuff like that. And him and I had a close relationship. And then I went back and read his text message after we got off the phone, and it pretty much was the same thing. It echoed the same thing. I
Mm.
love you. I'm proud of you. I love the young man that you are, so on and so forth. Happy birthday. If you need me, call me. Love you, Pops.
That shit right
And
there means a lot, yo. Even if you
right,
hate the man, you know what I'm saying? Even if you hate him, that means a lot. Like, damn, you can think about him, man, fuck him. He,
yeah,
he wasn't there. Da 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 da. But if you can see that there's an effort, there should at
right,
least be some forgiveness. You know what I'm saying, on some
right.
kind of level.
Well, see, the thing about it is, I have siblings. I have one sibling that doesn't care for him at all, but all of us have different experiences with him.
I'm that one
Like,
sibling that doesn't care about my father-in-law at all. That's me. You know what I'm saying? Because I got the
well,
same kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm
yeah,
going through the same. Like, the thing is with me, I'm only 5 hours away from him, but he's never actually given an effort. So it's just like, well, you there, I'm here. Don't talk to me, I don't talk to you. It doesn't matter either way. You know what I'm saying?
I'll say this. Some people may think that once you go ahead and dismiss it like that, that it's okay because you're not dwelling on it and you're not too worried about it. But I'll tell you like this: before my father and I connected, my biological father, before we connected, it had been decades already. I was out of high school and I was up the street, like 5 minutes up the street. I was at a car wash at a detail shop. I was helping up there with my girlfriend's parents at the time. I found out he was in the city. They said, "Hey, your dad's here. He's down the street." He was over my brother's house. I have two brothers that lived in the same city. He was over there. So I like, okay, I'll be back. I'm going up the street. I go up the street. By the time I make it, I tell them that, hey, tell him I'm on my way. I get there, he's gone.
Hmm.
I get there, he's gone all the way back to where he lived at the time, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
see him at all again for like 7 years.
Wow.
Not even a conversation for the next 7 years. And I already hadn't talked to him since I was like 5, but he was up the street from me, nothing. And so
Wow. I've had something
at
very
that time,
similar. I've had something very similar happen.
and see, with that, I took that based on my mom and where I was in my life at the time. I didn't have a kid at the time. I was still very young. Um, I decided that I no longer had that desire to see
Hmm.
him, to be there and stuff like that because you're 5 minutes away
That feels.
until
How did that feel? Did that feel like a big step in your life? Did that feel like it was something that was needed, like, or maybe the relationship with your dad at that point was like, since it was non-existent, it wasn't just really important, so it was easy to move on.
I would say the out of all of what you just asked, I would say it wasn't as important.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it didn't matter. I would just say it wasn't as important because I didn't dwell on it throughout the years because I hadn't seen it.
I see,
And
that makes sense.
and growing up, it was I never missed what I didn't have because my
Hmm.
mom did such a good job, a great job at providing and giving. And even my stepfather, he had been in my life since I was 10. They did well actually since like 8 or 9. They did such a great job at giving me a life. The hell, I didn't realize I was from the hood until I was 20 something years old.
Wow.
Like, I didn't have a whole lot of luxurious things. I just only wanted what I needed, only wanted to go where simple things, stuff that didn't necessarily cost money. I didn't care whether Santa Claus was real. I just knew, hey, that time of year, this is what we do, this is how it goes. So at that moment, I just felt like, okay, well, hey, he was down the street. I'm like, well, oh, that was fucked up. Oh well, let me get back to watching these cars. And I moved forward. But then as soon as I got a chance, when as soon as we connected, and then maybe a year or so later, he said he'd be in my hometown. Somebody on his side of the family passed. I rushed to go. He said he'd be there. I rushed to go. And from that point, we had already been talking on the phone. We had already been, exchanging different conversations. So when we saw each other after all that time, everything just gelled. And like I said, we all have different experiences. And for me, I understand who he was, where he was, but then, I had this project I worked on. It's called My Black. And it's me and some other poets that I put this project together. And it went through, of course, being black in America, so on and so forth. But then it also went to, because, and I don't want to get too far into this part of the conversation when it comes to just the black culture and things like that. But one of the things in our culture that people forget is that our fathers and our fathers' fathers, so on and so forth, weren't taught how to be fathers. They weren't taught all those key essential things to do and to be. And we blame, like each generation blames the previous generation, but they forget that if you go all the way back and you can talk about slavery and culture and different things like that being ripped away, what do you think we had to do to survive? And how do you think we had to teach our kids to survive? Because if they're on the plantation and they're on a block and they say, oh, this one's sickly, they're not going to try to figure out why this kid can't get his emotions together. They're not going to try to figure out why this kid is not adapting or adjusting to this life. They're not figuring that out. They just kill him or get rid of him. So, so what did the next person who witnessed that have to do? They had to adjust to
and
and
teach
fake
them.
like there was nothing wrong. And
Damn
then
right.
when they go to that next generation, they had to teach them to be strong because emotions and all these other things and caring and sharing and all of that was weak for a
Mhm.
man to have. So this piece I wrote, because of course I was talking about stuff that happened over at the what was it, when they stormed the Capitol. I wrote about all that and I just kept adding to it. But then I got to this piece. You remember that movie Fences with Denzel?
Man, look. I ain't gonna front. I'm like one of the only people in my circle that loved that movie. Everybody else around me hated that shit.
I
I
loved it. I
fucking
absolutely
loved
loved it.
that shit.
I loved it. And see, I wrote a piece called Fences based on that movie, and there was a part this because normally I write and then I freestyle, but there was this one line I had in there. I said, I never knew your father, never knew how he was, but if you're anything like him, I can't be mad as your son. And so, and
That's
basically
deep.
what
That's
that
deep as fuck.
basically what that means is, you only did what you knew how to do. Like even as he got older and our relationship was what it was, there was only so much he could do and so much he could respond to. And he had six of us total. My mom only had two kids. He had six.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, my response to him, he knew how to respond to the love and reception because when he passed at his funeral, a lot of people talked about how he was as a father figure and all these other things. And he had oh, he was such a father figure to me. And all these people are saying these things that I never got to experience. And that was the first time him not being in my life ever hurt.
Oh wow. That makes a
Because
lot of sense for real.
because I accepted him and we moved. And don't get me wrong, it was only during that time because I heard it from so many other people um, at his funeral. But at the same time, like I said, he only knew what he knew how to do. If he was in that environment, which was hundreds and hundreds of miles away from me, if he's in that environment and he knows how to move in that, and they're showing him love and all this, in his younger days, he did dirt. In his younger days, he was everywhere. So he stick and move basically. So everybody was this mentality about the younger him, and you know how it is. People are going to keep you in the box that they remember you to be in. They're not trying to see anything different. And so,
Especially especially in Puerto Rican families. I don't know about necessarily black families, but I swear to God, in Puerto Rican families, it's like if what however you were at 6 years old is the same you are at 46 years
Exactly.
old.
Well, it's I wouldn't think it's necessarily just in the black families or black culture. It's more or less it depends on where you go to. It's like when they speak about crime. It's based on where you live. It's not based on the whole race. It's based on where you live, how that crime is in that area. And see, when it comes to us as families, like I said, I didn't know I was from the hood till I was 20 some years old. So guess what? I was in the hood. I was respected by people in the hood. I'm passing by drug dealers every day, dapping them up. It's like, hey, what's up? I had one cat offer, ask me, did I
That's
want
your
a cell phone?
that's your
I
people.
said no. Exactly. He asked me, did I want a cell phone? I said no. He's like, oh, okay. And I kept going. There was no pressure, no extra. And we kept it moving. And some of these same people I shot ball with, played football with, played baseball with. And just by the same token, I know some cats to this day I didn't know knew me, and they were some of the hardest drug dealers shooting and fighting everything back in the day. But how
Straight.
you carried yourself was how people respected you, where I'm from. So if I moved about a certain way, now everybody knows me as the kid. I was never there in the midst of it. If it happened, I wasn't there. They knew my mom didn't play that with me.
Hmm.
Um, they knew some of my people. They knew which of my people were affiliated, all that kind of stuff. But I didn't have to be associated with it. And
That's like
so
that's like with me living in Neptune, New Jersey, on
right,
Fisher Ave. Everybody knew Iris's kids. Don't fuck with Iris's kids, because Iris will come at your motherfucking house, not only to whip your mom's ass, but she's gonna make all the boys fight all your boys. That's the way it
right,
rolled. That's the way it rolled on Fisher Ave, man. That's the way it just was. You know what I'm saying? So like having that kind of reputation in a community, you don't realize it until years later that that
right.
actually does mean, really, it means something.
Exactly. And so, in situations like that, that shaped who I am as I start to come to that realization. And see, with my dad, he was into the gangs and drugs, but he was in Chicago. So he was a part of that lifestyle. You grow up in it and then you stick to it and you move in how you move. There's no way he could know how to really, raise us, especially if he has us in these different areas of the country, basically, with how things are different women, different vibe, different thing like that. So it's like now you're doing the dirt, but then you're doing the dirt with women who have very different personalities. How are you gonna respond to it with your immature mind? And
Yeah,
then you're
that's when
still a
that's when
part of the
shit goes. That's when shit goes bad, yo.
exactly. So, you're up here, now you're up north or the Midwest dealing with the stuff you're dealing with by choice. You ain't got time to be over here. And so of course he was in prison most of my life. And I found that out through the grapevine. So by the time he was out and I actually got a chance to speak to him, it was something special. He sounded like Red Fox to me. I've always told him that. I was like, man, you sound like Red Fox. You know that, right? And so and he cussed like Red Fox, the real Red Fox.
Yeah. If anybody know
And
Real Red Fox, if you listen to the records from like
yeah,
the 50s and 60s, that's the real Red Fox right there,
right,
yo.
right, right, right. And so, man, as I started to grow, relationships like that are the. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, you good.
Okay. Relationships like that are the ones that shape who I am, where I'm going, how I move, because I didn't want my kids to hold any malice or anything like that towards
Sure.
me or anybody else because that ultimately holds them back.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to my dynamic three, I couldn't be a hypocrite, of course, because they have fathers, and with them, I want them to understand what it is to not hold on to those things. That you have your limits, you have your boundaries, and you don't let anybody show you
For
disrespect or
sure.
feel entitled to
Absolutely.
what you
Yeah.
have in your life and things like that. But I learned how to be a man from those men. I learned how not to be in a sense with my father. I learned forgiveness when it came to my biological father. I learned how to step up, take responsibility, and work hard from my stepfather. I learned nothing but straight hard work, love, and dedication from my grandfather. And then out of all of my mistakes, you know, of course, I hadn't been nowhere near perfect, and I made conscious decisions to do things I knew were bad for me. But once I had my daughter, I started thinking more about what I wanted to do as far as a legacy, how I wanted that to be. And then, like I said, my dynamic three totaling up five now, it's like, what am I doing to further do that? And then I pray a lot. I pray a whole lot. And I feel like whether I go left or right, I'm good. He got me like that. And I'll never fight anybody or debate what you believe versus what I believe. I don't believe in that. I
Yeah,
believe that if
that's dumb.
right. I believe if you know me as a person, you're gonna get to know me as a person. If you decide to ask me, hey, why are you always like this? Where do you get that from? I'll tell you. I'm
Yeah,
just not gonna fight you with it.
yeah. It's not gonna be on my shoulder. It's not gonna be the first thing I talk about. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? That's not cool. So it's you know, like how they always say that the loudest person in the room is generally the weakest. You know, a lot of the things that we've gone through in life we put on our shoulders, and the ones that are out there shouting about it all the time are not necessarily the best examples of a lot of the shit that we've been through. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
And I think, you know, with especially with having growing and having that father son relationship, the 10 years with your pops, man, that's extremely important. And I congratulate you on that, man, because it's all about that generational curse. Like my father did. My father knew his father, but hated his father. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yep.
I don't know my great grandfather. My grandfather died. My dad's dad died in a tin fucking like a tin house with mud floors. He died of from drinking too much and shit. So it's like what example did my father have, which was none. And I can't expect my father to learn how to be a good father without him having a good father. You know what I'm saying? So he
Right.
did the
Exactly.
my father did the best he could, and I do understand that and I do respect that. And like I said, it's at the point now where it's just like, well, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. It's cool. I ain't got a
Yeah.
problem. My kids don't even know you. You know what I'm saying? It's all right. It's just the way it is. Plus,
Hmm.
my kids look at their grandfather as my stepfather.
Well, see, one thing about it, it's once you have that peace, it's huge because you know some people would think I'm trying to get everybody to say, hey, forgive them, go seek them out, go do this and that, and I'm really not. What I'm saying is, you can't make a person do what they don't want to do,
That's right.
and so when it comes down to it, if they don't want to, you have to make sure not only you're at peace, but not only for yourself, but make sure you're at peace for your kids if you have kids, because
Facts.
they will carry whatever
Mm-hmm.
you carry, and they'll already
Yes.
have their own shit that they got to carry. So if they're carrying that plus yours,
Mm-hmm.
you're carrying something from another person. So how much of that
Yep.
are you gonna get for your kids to carry? And
It's
so
come out. The term has come out straight up. Generational curse. I mean, that's what that shit is, straight up, and it
exactly,
stops with us right now. You know what I'm saying? We can't allow. There's no doubt about some of the things that we grew up with in the past that may have been beneficial to us now, even as parents. But if we had the whole entire dynamic and we could teach our children and it get taught down through generations upon generations, I think that's always a better thing than you know my dad's over here, I don't know him, blah blah blah. But at the same time, he's a drunk and he cheats and he's out there fucking all the women at the same time. You're doing the same thing. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't break the shit. That just
right,
complete. That just makes the cycle continue.
exactly. And I mean that's the one thing I try to tell people. I mean, regardless, and I tell my kids this all the time. I said, you might not like me, you may feel like you don't even love me, but the one thing you'll never be able to do or even think to do is question whether or not I love you, or if you call me
Hmm.
that I'm not gonna be there. You'll never have to question that. And they all looked at me, and then they looked at each other like, well, okay, yeah, you're right. And to this day, I always tell them that, because as soon as something happens, I get that call.
Yeah.
As
And you
soon as
want
something
that.
starts, exactly.
It's a good time to do plugs anyway. Thanks for listening, y'all. I really do appreciate it. Um, like, subscribe, listen to the podcast on all major platforms, the Rsay podcast. Patreon.com/Rsay help support future episodes. Obviously, we have Shroom Fest coming up August 21st. Join a tier, get a ticket. All right, $3 to get you in for real. But if you want to, you can join the $25 tier, which is the loyalty program. And anybody that joins the loyalty program up until August 30th, I will be giving away a free bottle of CBD, which is right here. Free bottle of CBD to everybody that joins.